The coffee had gone cold 3 hours ago, but Dr. Sarah Chen didn't notice. Her eyes stayed fixed on the screen, watching the strange pattern repeat itself over and over. The signal was old, so old that it barely registered on their modern equipment. If she hadn't been running a deep scan of forgotten frequencies, she would have missed it completely. "Got something weird here?" she called out to her colleague across the monitoring station. The listening post, Kepler 9, floated in the emptiness between stars, far from Earth, far from everything. Its job was simple: listen to the universe and report anything unusual. Sarah had been doing this job for 2 years, and most days brought nothing but cosmic static. Today was different. The signal pulsed in a rhythm that made her think of a heartbeat: slow, steady, desperate. She ran it through the translation programs, and her breath caught in her throat. The words that appeared on her screen seemed impossible. "This is a message from the architects. Our time ends. We seal the darkness so others may live. These coordinates mark our final work. If you receive this, if you can understand it, please come. Do not let our sacrifice be forgotten. Do not let them escape." Sarah's hand shook as she typed. The architects were legends, stories that older alien species told about the ones who came before. They had built wonders across the galaxy 50,000 years ago, then vanished without explanation. Most species thought they were myths. Some believed they had ascended to a higher plane of existence. None expected to hear from them again. She brought the signal to Commander Park, who brought it to the human delegation at the Galactic Collective. 3 days later, Sarah stood in the massive council chamber surrounded by beings from 47 different worlds. Some looked like insects. Others were made of living crystal. A few existed partially in dimensions she couldn't fully perceive. All of them were more advanced than humanity. All of them made that fact very clear. "This signal is obviously a trap," announced Ambassador Kreth, a being that resembled a floating jellyfish wrapped in silver light. "The architects are extinct. Someone is using their legend to lure ships into danger." "The frequency is authentic," Sarah argued. "Carbon dating of the signal degradation puts it at exactly 50,000 years old. This is real." "Even if it is real," another ambassador spoke, this one a towering creature made of living stone, "the location is impossible to reach. The coordinates place it deep in the void margin. That region is filled with collapsed space and radiation storms. Modern ships cannot navigate it. Our systems are too refined, too complex for such chaos." Sarah felt frustration building in her chest. She had spent days studying the signal, and everyone here was dismissing it without truly listening. The message includes a path. The architects left instructions on how to reach them. It uses gravitational slingshots and low-energy propulsion. Primitive methods, Kreth dismissed. No advanced species has used such techniques in thousands of years. This proves the signal is either false or a test we are meant to ignore. The council voted. 45 species agreed. Do not respond to the signal. Only humans and one other species, the Torvans, abstained from voting. As the chamber emptied, Sarah caught the eye of the Torvan ambassador. The reptilian being shook its head slowly, a gesture of sympathy that crossed species. "They are afraid," the Torvan whispered. "The architects left this galaxy in terror. No one wants to discover what frightened gods." Back at Kepler 9, Sarah couldn't let it go. She played the signal again and again, studying every detail. The path the architects described used techniques from humanity's early space age. Manual calculations, analog systems, things that modern species considered obsolete. But Sarah had studied history. She knew these methods worked precisely because they were simple. They didn't fail when conditions got complicated. Captain Marcus Webb arrived at the station 2 weeks after the council meeting. His ship, the Odyssey Protocol, was an experimental vessel that combined human engineering with alien technology. Webb was known throughout the human fleet as someone who got results, often by ignoring proper procedure. "Show me this signal," he said, dropping into the chair beside Sarah. She walked him through everything. The message, the coordinates, the path, the council's dismissal. Webb listened in silence, his weathered face unreadable. He had spent 30 years in space, first as a pilot, then as an explorer. His gray hair and tired eyes told stories of 1,000 close calls. "They're right about one thing," Webb finally said. "This is dangerous. Probably suicidal." Sarah's heart sank. "But," Webb continued, a slight smile crossing his face, "someone has to answer. That's what humans do, right? We show up when no one else will." "The council forbade it," Sarah reminded him. The Council doesn't command human ships, Webb replied. They advise. I'm choosing not to take their advice. Within 3 days, Webb had assembled a crew, 40 volunteers, all human, all willing to fly into a region of space that had destroyed every ship that entered it for the last 1,000 years. Chief Engineer Maria Santos signed on first. She was a legend in human engineering circles, famous for fixing impossible problems with whatever material she had available. Either we make history or we become history, Santos said with a shrug. Beats dying of boredom at a desk. Dr. Chen joined as communications officer. She needed to see this through. The signal had called to something deep inside her, something that said this mattered more than safety or rules. The night before launch, Webb stood on the observation deck of Kepler 9, staring at the stars. Sarah found him there, silent in the darkness. "Do you think we'll survive this?" she asked. Webb didn't answer immediately. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. "I think the architects sent that signal knowing it might never be answered. I think they died hoping someone somewhere would care enough to try. That's worth something, isn't it?" The Odyssey protocol launched the next morning. As the ship pulled away from the station, accelerating toward the void margin, a message came through on the emergency frequency. It was from a collective observer ship. "Human vessel, you don't understand what you're heading toward. Nothing survives the void margin. Turn back while you can." Webb switched off the communication panel and looked at his crew. "Well," he said, "I guess we'll be the first." The stars ahead seemed to darken as they approached the edge of known space. Behind them, the Galactic Collective watched and waited, certain they would never see the Odyssey protocol again. The Odyssey protocol shuddered as it crossed into the void margin. Every screen on the bridge flickered, and the lights dimmed for 3 long seconds. Chief Engineer Maria Santos cursed in Spanish, her fingers flying across her manual override panel. "Magnetic storm just hit us," she announced. The AI wanted to shut down. I told it to keep working. "Can you do that?" asked Lieutenant James Park, the navigator. "I just did," Santos replied. "Computers are smart, but they're also cowards. Sometimes you need to ignore what they tell you." Captain Webb studied the view screen. Watching space itself seemed to twist and bend. The void margin wasn't empty. It was too full, packed with gravitational anomalies and radiation that made sensors scream warnings. Modern alien ships relied on perfect data and precise calculations. Out here there was no such thing as perfect data. "Switch to manual navigation," Webb ordered. Park, use the old charts, the ones from the signal. "Sir, those charts are 50,000 years old." "And the architects made it through this place," Webb said. "We follow their path exactly." Dr. Sarah Chen sat at the communication station monitoring the signal. It was stronger now, clearer. The message repeated every 6 hours, and she had started to hear things beneath the words. Emotional resonance, fear, hope, determination. Whoever had sent this message had believed someone would come. She tried not to. Think about the fact that they were the first ones to answer in 50,000 years. The first real danger came on day 4. The proximity alarm started screaming, and Webb saw why. A debris field stretched across their path. Thousands of pieces of destroyed ships tumbling through the void. Some pieces were small. Others were the size of buildings. All of them were moving fast. "Those are alien ships," Park said, his voice tight. "I'm reading hull signatures from at least a dozen different species. Some of these wrecks are thousands of years old." Webb felt cold. These were the ships that had tried to answer the call before. All of them had failed. He zoomed in on one piece of debris, a section of hull that had been torn apart. The metal was melted and twisted in ways that shouldn't be possible. They tried to use their standard FTL drives, Santos said, studying the wreckage. "See those burn patterns? Their engines overloaded in the gravitational chaos. Too much power, too fast. The systems couldn't adapt. Can we make it through?" Webb asked. Santos grinned. "Captain, our ship is held together with human stubbornness and spare parts. We were built to adapt. These fancy alien ships were built to be perfect. Out here, perfect gets you killed." They navigated through the debris field using thrusters only, moving slowly and carefully. Park flew the ship manually, his hands on physical controls instead of touch screens. Twice they had to cut power completely and drift, letting the momentum carry them past particularly dangerous sections. It took 18 hours to cross what should have been a 10-minute journey. On the other side, exhausted and running on emergency rations, the crew allowed themselves a moment of relief. They had made it farther than anyone in recorded history. Then Chen picked up another signal. This one wasn't repeating. It was fresh, recorded maybe 1,000 years ago, from another ship that had tried to reach the architects. The message was fragmented, barely understandable, but Chen managed to piece together enough words to understand. Warning: the architects didn't vanish. They were fleeing. The darkness they sealed is worse than death. Turn back, save yourselves. Don't make our mistake, she played the message for Webb. He listened in silence, his face unreadable. Do we turn back? Chen asked. Did the architects turn back? Webb replied. They could have run. They could have saved themselves. Instead, they stayed and sealed whatever this darkness is. Now it's trying to get free, and we're the only ones crazy enough to help. We might all die, Chen said quietly. Everyone dies eventually, Webb said. Not everyone gets to die for something that matters. The journey got worse. Radiation storms forced them to shut down entire sections of the ship to protect the crew. They lost 2 of their 4 engines to gravitational shear. Santos performed repairs while wearing a radiation suit, working outside the ship in conditions that would have killed her if she had stayed out 5 minutes longer than she did. I'm getting too old for this, she muttered. Climbing back inside, her suit's radiation counter clicking angrily, but they kept moving forward. On day 9, Lieutenant Park made a discovery. Hidden in the architect's path data was something extra, a test, mathematical puzzles that seemed simple at first, but revealed deeper patterns the more you studied them. Chen worked on them during her off hours, and slowly she began to understand. The puzzles weren't testing intelligence. They were testing determination. Each problem had an obvious answer that was wrong and a difficult answer that was right. The easy path led nowhere. The hard path required someone willing to keep trying even when failure seemed certain. It's a filter, Chen explained to Webb. The architects designed the journey to be impossible for species that rely only on technology and logic. They wanted someone stubborn, someone who would keep going even when it made no sense. Someone human, Webb said with a tired smile. On day 12, they picked up new readings. Something massive was ahead, hidden in the chaos of the void margin. Something that made their sensors report numbers that couldn't be real, a structure the size of a solar system wrapped around a dying star. That's it, Chen whispered. That's where the signal is coming from. As they approached, the ship's AI began behaving strangely. It kept suggesting they turn back, calculating a million reasons why proceeding was illogical. Santos finally had to put it in limited mode, restricting it to basic functions only. Even our computer is scared, Park said. Our computer wasn't the one who volunteered for this mission, Webb replied. We were. The structure grew larger on their screens. It was beautiful and terrifying, a web of technology and energy that seemed to hold the dying star in a careful embrace. Lights pulsed across its surface in patterns that might have been language or might have been warnings. And beneath it all, they felt something else. A presence, something vast and hungry, waiting in the darkness behind the structure, the thing the architects had died to contain. The Odyssey protocol, battered and barely functioning, crossed the final distance. They had done what 47 alien species said was impossible. They had survived the void margin, but as they drew closer to the massive structure, new alarms began to sound. The readings were clear and horrifying. The containment was failing. Whatever the architects had sealed away was breaking free, and according to the countdown their sensors detected, they had less than 30 days before it escaped. Webb looked at his exhausted crew, these humans who had followed him into certain death because it was the right thing to do. He thought about the message from the ship that had tried this journey before, the warning to turn back. Then he thought about the billions of lives in the galaxy who didn't know they were in danger, who didn't know that humanity had answered an ancient call for help. All right, people, Webb said, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. Oh, we came here to answer a distress call. Looks like we've got work to do. The Odyssey protocol moved toward the ancient structure, its human crew ready to face whatever darkness waited inside. The docking port was old, incredibly old, but it still functioned. The Odyssey protocol connected with a hiss of equalizing air pressure, and Captain Webb felt the structure's artificial gravity take hold. It was slightly lighter than Earth normal, comfortable enough for humans but clearly designed for someone else. Air is breathable, reported Santos, checking her scanner. Slightly high in nitrogen, but we can handle it. Temperature is cold. 15 degrees Celsius. Life support is still working after 50,000 years, Webb said, impressed. The architects built things to last. The boarding party consisted of Webb, Chen, Santos, and Park, along with 4 security personnel. They left the rest of the crew on the ship with orders to leave if things went wrong. No one expected those orders to be followed, but Webb gave them anyway. The interior of the structure was vast. Corridors stretched in directions that seemed to ignore normal geometry. The walls were covered in symbols that glowed faintly blue, pulsing like a heartbeat. Chen ran her scanner over them, trying to understand. "It's a language," she said, "but it's also mathematics. And music." The architects didn't separate those concepts the way we do. They walked for an hour, following the strongest signal source. The structure felt alive somehow, aware of their presence. Twice doors opened before they reached them. Once a platform rose from the floor exactly when they needed to cross a gap. "It knows we're here," Park said nervously. "Good," Webb replied. "Maybe it can tell us what we're dealing with." They found the central chamber deep in the heart of the structure. It was enormous, a sphere that must have been 3 kilometers across. In the center, suspended in a web of energy, was something that hurt to look at. It was dark but not empty. It moved without moving. It existed in more dimensions than human eyes could process. "That's them," Chen whispered. "The Eaters." That's what the architects called them in the message. Around the sphere, holographic displays showed data in formats that were almost understandable. Chen studied them, her expertise in communication patterns helping her decode the information. What she learned made her blood run cold. "The Eaters consume energy," she explained. "Any energy, heat, light, motion, life. They eat it and grow stronger." The architects discovered them feeding on a star cluster. By the time the architects understood what they were dealing with, the Eaters had consumed 17 solar systems. "How did the architects stop them?" Webb asked. "They didn't stop them," Chen said. "They trapped them. This entire structure is a containment system. The dying star provides just enough energy to keep the Eaters in a dormant state. Not dead, just sleeping. The architects sacrificed their entire civilization to build this prison." Santos examined the energy readings. "The star is almost dead. When it goes out, the containment fails. Those things wake up and start eating again." She checked her scanner. "We have about 28 days. A sound filled the chamber, not quite a voice, not quite music. The holographic displays changed and a figure appeared. It was tall and thin, with features that reminded Webb of every ancient statue of gods he had ever seen. Beautiful and terrifying and utterly inhuman. "I am the keeper," the figure said, its voice resonating in their bones. "I am what remains of those who built this place. I have waited so long for someone to answer." "We received your message," Webb said. "We're here to help." The keeper's expression was impossible to read, but Webb sensed surprise. "You are young. Your species is barely aware of the greater universe." The message was sent to the oldest, wisest civilizations, those with the power to complete our work. "They didn't come," Chen said. "We're what you got." The keeper studied them for a long moment. The message contained tests, psychological barriers embedded in the journey itself. It was designed to filter for specific qualities. Logic would tell any species to ignore the signal. Advanced technology would fail in the void margin. Only those with determination, adaptability, and willingness to sacrifice for strangers would reach this place. "We're stubborn," Santos said. "It's kind of our thing." 47 species received the message, the keeper continued. None came. I began to believe the qualities we valued were extinct in the universe. Then I detected your response. You came knowing you might fail. You came anyway. This is illogical. This is inefficient. This is exactly what we needed. The keeper showed them the full scope of the problem. The containment system required constant adjustment. The architects had designed it to last forever, but forever was ending. The star was dying, and without its energy the barriers would collapse. There is a solution, the keeper said, but it requires a sacrifice. Someone must stay behind to manually trigger the star's collapse. The energy released will destroy the Eaters permanently, but whoever initiates the sequence cannot escape. Webb felt the weight of those words. They had come all this way, survived impossible odds, and now the price was someone's life. I'll do it, he said immediately. No, Chen said. Captain, with respect, shut up, Santos added. We're not doing the sacrifice play. That's lazy writing. Humans don't work that way. Then what do you suggest? the keeper asked. Santos walked around the holographic displays, studying the data with an engineer's eye. Park joined her, and together they started talking in rapid technical language that Webb barely followed. Chen began examining the containment system itself, looking for something everyone else had missed. The architects were brilliant, Santos finally said, but they thought like architects. Perfect solutions, permanent fixes, no room for error. And, Webb prompted. Humans don't build perfect things, Santos continued. We build things that work good enough and then we fix them when they break. We over-engineer the backups and under-engineer the main systems. We make things that can fail without catastrophic consequences. I don't see how that helps, the keeper said. Because you're thinking about destroying the Eaters with one big event, Park explained. But what if we don't destroy them? What if we just move them? Chen's eyes lit up. The Odyssey has an experimental translocation drive. We've never tested it because it's dangerous and unreliable. But if we could use it to move the containment field and the Eaters into the star before it collapses, we could trigger the collapse remotely and escape. Santos finished. It's risky. Maybe a 30% chance of success. 30% is terrible odds, the keeper said. It's 30% better than 0%, Webb replied. And it means nobody has to die, probably. Let's do it. They spent the next 12 hours working. The keeper, initially skeptical, began to understand how humans approached problems. Where the architects would spend years calculating the perfect solution, humans would try something, see if it worked, and adjust on the fly. This is chaos, the keeper observed. This is human engineering, Santos corrected. Same thing. They rigged the containment field to the Odyssey's power systems. They programmed the translocation drive with parameters that made the ship's AI scream warnings. They set up remote triggers that would collapse the star exactly 4 minutes after they escaped. If they escaped. The architects spent 5,000 years building this prison, the keeper said. You have designed a way to end it in 12 hours. I do not know if this is genius or madness. Usually both, Webb said. As they prepared to implement the plan, the keeper asked one final question. Why did you come? Truly, your species gains nothing from this. The galaxy dismissed you. You owe us nothing, Chen answered, because someone asked for help. That's enough. The keeper was silent for a long moment. We chose our tests well. We looked for the most advanced species, but we defined advancement incorrectly. Technology is not wisdom. Power is not courage. Perhaps the universe did not need the strongest to answer our call. Perhaps it needed the kindest. Save the philosophy for later, Santos said. Right now we need to move a star prison and maybe not die. Everyone ready? They were as ready as they would ever be. The plan was insane, cobbled together from human stubbornness and ancient architect technology. It probably wouldn't work, but it was the only chance they had. The plan started falling apart immediately. Translocation drive is overheating, Santos shouted from engineering. It's trying to move too much mass at once. The containment field is heavier than we calculated. Captain Webb gripped his command chair.
Can you compensate?
I'm trying, but this drive was designed to move our ship, not a structure the size of a moon. Her fingers flew across her console. I need more power. Take it from life support, Webb ordered. We only need to survive 4 more minutes. The Odyssey shuddered and every light on the ship flickered. Through the view screen, Webb watched the impossible happen. The massive containment sphere began to move, dragged by forces that shouldn't exist. The Eaters inside stirred, sensing change. Dark tendrils of not-quite-matter pressed against their prison. Containment integrity at 60%, Park reported. If it drops below 40, those things break free. How long until we can activate the star collapse? Webb asked. Chen checked her calculations. 3 minutes after we achieve translocation. The stellar core needs to be destabilized in a specific sequence, or the explosion won't be powerful enough to destroy the Eaters. So we need to hold everything together for 3 extra minutes, Webb said. Santos. Working on it, Captain. And by working on it, I mean praying to every god I've ever heard of. The ship's AI, restricted to basic functions, suddenly activated its emergency protocols. Warning klaxons blared and red lights bathed the bridge. AI is trying to abort, Park said. It says we're all going to die. Override it, Webb ordered. And someone shut off those alarms. I can't think. The alarms went silent, but the danger remained very real. The translocation drive was operating at 200% capacity. held together by Santos's expertise and sheer luck. The containment field crept toward the dying star, fighting every meter of the journey. Then something unexpected happened. "Captain, I'm detecting ships entering the void margin," Chen said, studying her sensors in disbelief. "Multiple ships. They're broadcasting human identification codes." "What?" Webb pulled up the tactical display. Dozens of signatures appeared, heading toward their position through the gravitational chaos. Civilian transports, research vessels, even a few old military ships that should have been decommissioned years ago. A communication came through. The face on the screen belonged to Admiral Rodriguez, the head of Earth's deep space fleet. "Webb, you idiot," Rodriguez said, but she was smiling. "Did you really think we'd let you do this alone? Every ship that could make the journey is on its way. Admiral, this area is too dangerous for civilian ships," Webb protested. "Then it's a good thing these civilians are all crazy humans," Rodriguez replied. "We heard about what you were doing. Earth Command wanted to order you back, but your crew leaked the situation to the press. Now half of humanity wants to help, and the other half is already building monuments to you. We're coming, Captain. Hold on." Webb felt something warm in his chest, something that had nothing to do with the overheating ship systems. Humanity had answered his call the same way he had answered the architect's call, because it was the right thing to do. But the help came with complications. "Captain, Galactic Collective warships just entered the region," Park announced. "They're hailing us. They're ordering us to stand down." The communication screen split. On one side, Admiral Rodriguez and the human fleet. On the other, Ambassador Kreth in a formation of sleek alien warships that made the human vessels look like children's toys. "Captain Webb," Kreth said, its voice cold, "you are endangering the entire galaxy with your reckless actions. We have the authority to stop you by force if necessary." "You don't understand what we're doing here," Webb said. "We understand perfectly," Kreth replied. "You have activated ancient technology that you do not comprehend. You are moving a containment system that has held for 50,000 years. Your interference will release the very things the architects died to imprison." "The containment is failing," Chen interrupted, patching through the data. "If we do nothing, those things escape in 3 weeks. We're trying to destroy them permanently." "Your analysis is flawed," another collective member said. "We have studied the data. The rational course is to evacuate nearby systems and allow the eaters to dissipate naturally over the next century." "Dissipate?" Webb felt anger rising. "They eat energy. They'll consume everything in their path. Billions will die." "Some sacrifice is acceptable to avoid greater risk," Kreth stated. "Your plan could fail catastrophically. Stand down or we will disable your vessel." The collective ships moved into position, weapons charging. They weren't bluffing. "Captain, we can't fight them," Park said quietly. "Even with the human fleet, we're outgunned 100 to 1. Webb looked at his crew, exhausted, scared, but still determined. He thought about the Keeper, the last remnant of a civilization that had sacrificed everything to protect strangers they would never meet. He thought about the billions of lives hanging in the balance. "No," Webb said simply. "We're not stopping." "Captain," Kreth began. "You had 50,000 years to answer that distress call," Webb interrupted. "You had time to study the problem to find a perfect solution. You chose to do nothing. We've been here 2 weeks and we're finishing what the architects started. If you want to stop us, you'll have to shoot us down, and you'll have to shoot down every human ship that follows us." Silence filled the communication channel. The collective ships held position, weapons hot but not firing. Then a new voice joined the channel, young, uncertain but determined. "This is Lieutenant Sev of the collective warship Harmonious Reason. I hereby resign my commission and request permission to join the human operation." "Lieutenant Sev." "Return to formation immediately," Kreth ordered. "With respect." "Ambassador, I decline," the young Torvan officer said. "I've been watching these humans since they entered the void margin. They've done more to help the galaxy in 2 weeks than we've done in 2,000 years. I want to be part of that." The Torvan ship broke formation, moving to join the human vessels. It was a small ship, barely armed, but the gesture was enormous. "Any other traitors wish to reveal themselves?" Kreth asked coldly. 3 more ships left the collective formation, then 5, then a dozen. Young officers, crew members tired of bureaucracy, species that remembered what it meant to take risks for others. They joined the human fleet, a ragged assembly of ships that had no business being in the same space as collective warships. We're detecting power fluctuations in the collective fleet, Chen said. I think some of them are having internal debates. The translocation drive screamed and Santos cursed. Captain, we're out of time. Either we finish this now or the whole system explodes. 30 seconds, Webb made his decision. Complete the sequence. Trigger the star collapse. Captain, the collective fleet, Park began. We'll do what they do. We're doing what we do. Execute the plan. Santos hit the final command. The containment sphere with its cargo of dormant eaters slammed into the dying star's core. The translocation drive burned out instantly, melting into slag. Every system on the Odyssey failed at once. In the sudden silence, lit only by emergency lights, Webb counted seconds. They needed to be far enough away before the star collapsed. They needed the eaters to be deep enough in the stellar core. They needed everything to work perfectly, and the Odyssey was dead in space, drifting on momentum alone. Auxiliary power is gone, Santos reported. Main engines are slag. We're a very expensive piece of debris now. Through the view screen, the star began to change. Its surface rippled, distorted by the massive energy surge happening at its core. The countdown reached 0. The star collapsed. But it wasn't a normal collapse. It was beautiful and terrible. A death that released 50,000 years of stored energy in one instant. The explosion was small by stellar standards, but focused, directed inward by architect technology that still functioned even as it died. The eaters, ancient and hungry and terrible, burned. They screamed in frequencies that shattered sensors and made human ears bleed. But they burned, consumed by the very energy they craved, unable to escape the trap that had become their crematorium. And then there was silence. Did it work? Park whispered. Chen checked her remaining sensors. The eaters are gone. I'm reading 0 energy signatures. They're actually gone. The crew sat in stunned silence. They had done it. Against impossible odds, against the wisdom of the entire Galactic Collective, they had done it. Then Santos started laughing. We saved the galaxy, and now we're going to die because we can't move. Actually, came Admiral Rodriguez's voice over the emergency channel. You've got a lot of ships here ready to give you a tow. Just sit tight. Through the view screen, Webb watched dozens of ships approach. Human vessels, Torvan ships, and slowly, hesitantly, some collective ships that had decided to help after all. They were going home. 3 months later, Captain Marcus Webb stood in the Galactic Collective chambers and wondered if he was about to be executed. The massive hall was packed with representatives from every member species. Humans made up only a tiny fraction of the audience, but Webb could feel their support. Dr. Chen sat in the human delegation section, giving him an encouraging nod. Chief Engineer Santos was there too, though she had threatened to skip the whole thing and fix something useful instead. The collective council sat in their elevated positions, looking down at Webb like ancient judges. Ambassador Kreth spoke first, its voice echoing through the chamber. Captain Webb, you stand before this council to answer for your actions in the Void Margin incident. You violated a direct order from this body. You endangered your crew and potentially the entire galaxy. What do you have to say for yourself? Webb had spent weeks preparing speeches, consulting with diplomats, trying to find the right words. Now standing here, he threw all of that away. I'd do it again, he said simply. Someone needed help. We helped them. That's all. Murmurs rippled through the chamber, some outraged, some approving, all surprised by his bluntness. The council voted against responding to that signal for good reasons. Another ambassador said, we deemed it too dangerous, too uncertain. You ignored our wisdom. With respect, Webb replied, your wisdom was based on fear. The architects died protecting the galaxy from a threat you didn't even know existed. When given the chance to honor that sacrifice, you chose safety over action. I chose differently. And you nearly died, Kreth pointed out. But we didn't die, Webb said. And more importantly, the eaters are gone. According to the Keeper's final data, if we had done nothing, the containment would have failed in 18 days. Those things would have consumed the nearby Torvan colonies first, 20 billion lives. Then they would have spread. How many more would have died while this council debated the perfect solution? You cannot know that for certain, Kreth argued. Actually, they can. The voice came from the back of the chamber. The Keeper materialized, its holographic form reconstructed from data salvaged from the architect's structure. The entire council fell silent. Many species had never seen an architect, even a digital ghost of one. I have analyzed the containment failure progression. the keeper said. Captain Webb is correct. The Eaters would have escaped. The minimum death toll would have been 50 billion lives. The maximum would have been the complete sterilization of this galactic arm. His actions saved you all. But the risk, Kreth began. Was acceptable, the keeper interrupted. The architects sent our message knowing that answering it would be dangerous. We designed the journey to filter for specific qualities, and humanity passed every test. They demonstrated determination, adaptability, willingness to sacrifice for strangers. These are the qualities that define true advancement, not technological superiority. A lucky species with primitive methods, another ambassador said dismissively. They succeeded through chance, not skill. Then why didn't you succeed? The keeper asked. Your species is older than theirs. Your technology is more advanced. You had 50,000 years to attempt what humans accomplished in 2 weeks. The message was sent to everyone. Only they answered. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species argued that humanity should be punished for recklessness. Others praised them as saviors. The volume rose until the council head called for order. Then Ambassador Sek of the Torvans stood, their reptilian features serious. I move that we not only dismiss all charges against Captain Webb and his crew, but that we grant humanity full member status in this collective, with all rights and privileges. They are too young, Kreth protested. Too unpredictable, perhaps, Sek replied. Or perhaps we are too old, too cautious. We have become so advanced that we have forgotten what it means to take risks for others. Young Lieutenant Sev, my nephew, resigned his commission to help the humans. He should have been court-martialed. Instead, he became a hero to our younger generation. They ask why we didn't help. They ask why humans had to save us. I have no good answers. The Torvans second the motion, another Torvan representative said. Humanity has earned our respect. One by one, other species began to speak. Some in support, some in opposition. But the tone was shifting. The younger species, those who had sent ships to help humanity, voted in favor. Some of the older species, embarrassed by their inaction, voted in favor to save face. Others voted against, unable to accept that their caution had been wrong. The vote was close. So close that Webb couldn't tell which way it would go. Finally, the council head called for the final count. The motion passes, the council head announced. Humanity is granted full membership status, effective immediately. The human delegation erupted in cheers. Webb felt relief and pride and exhaustion all at once. Chen was crying. Santos was hugging anyone within reach. But the council head wasn't finished. Furthermore, this council recognizes the need for a rapid response force to handle cosmic threats. We propose the creation of the Sentinel Initiative, a joint effort of multiple species designed to address dangers that require immediate action rather than lengthy debate. Captain Webb, would humanity be willing to lead this initiative? Webb blinked. Lead it? We're the newest members. Precisely, the council head said. You are not bound by our old patterns of thinking. You take risks we have forgotten how to take. The galaxy needs that perspective. We accept, Admiral Rodriguez said quickly before Webb could respond, on the condition that the Sentinel Initiative remains independent of council politics. If we're going to do this, we do it without bureaucracy slowing us down. Agreed, the council head said. Though I suspect we will regret giving humans that much freedom. Probably, Webb agreed with a slight smile. The formal proceedings ended, and the chamber dissolved into smaller conversations. Species that had never spoken to humans before approached with questions, offers of collaboration, and a few challenges from those who still doubted. Webb handled it all with the tired patience of someone who had faced down ancient cosmic horrors and found politics somehow more exhausting. Lieutenant Sev, the young Torvan who had defected to help them, found Webb in the crowd. Captain, I wish to formally request assignment to the Sentinel Initiative. You'll probably regret that, Webb said. Humans are disorganized and reckless. I know, Sev said, their eyes bright. It sounds wonderful. Later that evening, the Odyssey crew gathered at a bar near the spaceport. The ship itself was still being repaired, rebuilt with a combination of human engineering and technology donated by grateful species. It would be months before she flew again. Santos raised her glass. To the architects. They died believing no one would answer. I hope wherever they are, they know they were wrong. To humanity, Chen added, for being too stubborn to know when to quit. To the Eaters, Park said. May they stay dead. Webb raised his own glass but didn't drink immediately. He looked at his crew, these ordinary humans who had done extraordinary things simply because it needed to be done. He thought about the billions of people who would never know how close they had come to annihilation. He thought about the signal that no one was supposed to answer. "To answered calls," he said finally. "May we always be crazy enough to respond." They drank, laughed, and shared stories that would become legends. Outside the bar, construction crews from a dozen species worked on the Odyssey, each one adding something unique. The ship was becoming a symbol, proof that different species could work together when it mattered. Weeks later, Webb stood on Earth at the memorial wall where the names of lost astronauts were recorded. He added a single name, Junior Engineer Marcus Chen, Sarah's younger brother, who had died in the containment collapse when a power conduit overloaded. The only casualty of their mission, and he had died doing his job, keeping the systems running long enough for everyone else to survive. "We did it," Webb said quietly to the name on the wall. "We answered the call." His communicator buzzed. A new signal had been detected from a different direction, another distress call, from another ancient species facing another cosmic threat. This time the message was clearer, simpler. "Help us!" Webb looked at the message, then at his crew roster. The Odyssey was almost ready. The Sentinel Initiative had ships and volunteers from 30 species. And somewhere out there someone needed help. He sent a response to the new signal, short and simple in a dozen languages. "We're coming." Because that was what humans did. When no one else would answer, when logic said to stay away, when the odds were impossible and the danger was real, humans showed up anyway. Not because they were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but because someone asked for help and that was enough. Far away, in another part of the galaxy, another ancient species received an answer they had never expected. A species they had never heard of, barely advanced enough for space travel, was on its way. And for the first time in 1,000 years, they allowed themselves to hope. The signal wasn't for humans. No one expected an answer. But humans gave one anyway. And in doing so, they taught the galaxy an old lesson that had been forgotten. True advancement isn't measured in technology or power. It's measured in the willingness to help others, even when it's hard, even when it's dangerous, even when no one else will. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not better weapons or faster ships, but something more valuable. The reminder that intelligence without compassion is just computation, and power without purpose is just waste. The universe was vast and dangerous and full of threats that would destroy the unprepared. But now it had something it hadn't had in 50,000 years. It had someone who would answer the call.